Good morning, everybody, and a happy Friday morning to you. Okay, as usual, we have the royal family. We have another Beckham update, and then we have Harry in court. And I'm actually giving you what he said, his actual statements in court, what the judge had to say to him. This is going to get ugly, I'm telling you guys. So let's just jump in and get busy because there's a lot to cover. Let's go. We're going to start off this morning with Princess Anne, who stepped out in Edinburgh. She visited the 20th anniversary photographic exhibition of the Scotland-Malawi Partnership in Edinburgh City Chambers on Tuesday. So Anne was doing this while the Prince and Princess of Wales were also in Scotland. The purple looks fabulous on her. I just love her. You guys already know that. Let's continue on to our next story. Next up, we have King Charles, who had a reception with the President of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto. This took place at Lancaster House in London to mark the UK and Indonesia joining forces to protect nature and community. They also met at Clarence House, I believe, before that reception. Next up, we have Queen Camilla. She went to visit Maggie's in Cheltenham. This is one of 27 centers across the country which supports people impacted by cancer. And the charity is celebrating its 30th anniversary. So the Queen spoke of the, quote, hundreds of questions that cancer patients and their loved ones have, and how important it is to have a place where they needn't pretend to be fine, where they can receive expert support, sympathy, and a cup of tea. The Queen happens to be president of Maggie's, in case you're unaware, and also present was former Spice Girl Geri Halliwell Horner. The Queen met a cancer patient named Caitlin Warrington, who's 23, who was diagnosed with a rare form of ovarian cancer at 14, and she suffered a relapse at 16 and 18. Unbelievable. And she's now in remission, and she explained that Maggie's helped them. She said, quote, "It's not just for me, but for my mom as well. We both come for support, and financially well, it's been so great." Maggie's is being described as a bright, peaceful place with inspiring people full of stories about the difference that they've made to them and to their families. Now, before she left, Camilla unveiled a portrait of herself by one of the artists. Looks fabulous, and she got some gorgeous flowers. Good for her. All right, we're going to move on now to the Duke of Kent. They're saying that he is, quote, seeking solace in music following the death of his wife last year. You know, the Duke of Kent is 90 years old, first cousin of the late Queen Elizabeth, and he attended a concert in Wigmore Hall in London last Sunday. He heard a performance there, and he presented the woman there with the Wigmore Hall medal after she played Schubert. The visit was seen as a tribute to his wife, Catherine, the Duchess of Kent, who passed away on September 4th. Remember, music was her lifelong passion. And here's a little bit of an update on the Beckham family stuff. Now, we know what happened. Brooklyn's tirade set off a series of claims and counterclaims, but the most incendiary accusation made by Brooklyn was that his parents had tried to bribe him into signing away the rights to his own name. Come to find out, the reason they were trying to get him to sign the agreement was to protect his rights, because his parents have commercial partners who have some rights over the Beckham name. And so it ensures that the kids are carved out of that. And Brooklyn was turned against signing the paperwork, it's being reported now, by people connected to Nicola. You guys can believe this one. Guests at the wedding of Nicola and Brooklyn were forced to hand over their smartphones, but there is an official, video from the wedding, and they're saying that Brooklyn and Nicola have the power to confirm what the inappropriate dance looked like if they wish to release that video. My guess is they won't, because I don't really think she did anything inappropriate. That's just my personal opinion. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to our Meghan news. As I told you the other day, it is true her show has been canceled, but it's being reported that she is now in talks about how she could possibly save her show. I have to be honest, I don't know why Netflix would do that. The first, I'm air quoting here, the first season, really everything was taped at the same time, did horribly. The second season did even worse. And the holiday show didn't even hit the top 1,000. So I don't understand why Netflix would do anything else with this woman. This is insane. I want you guys to remember that Netflix has their own internal team to work with as ever with Megan. Remember, that was part of the contract that Netflix would pay for the staff for as ever. Well, now it's coming out that there's so much drama surrounding them, and I'm quoting right from the article, that internally the team is over it before it's even launched. It's a logistical nightmare, and the buying teams are having an issue as they can't work out what the demand will be, if any. Yep. All right, here we go. It's time for Harry to get on the stand and give his spiel. So he arrived at the high court, ready to give evidence. You know, the other claimants were there, and he was in the stand by 11:35 a.m. UK time. And guess what? He agreed to be called Prince Harry. Isn't that just a shocker? After the first mention of Your Royal Highness. Then he was like, oh, just call me Prince Harry. Then they had to adjourn court because there were some technical hitches and the sound on the remote feed was dodgy and the witness statements couldn't be shown on the screen. So they stopped the whole thing. That at 11:46, the whole thing started again. Harry was back on the witness stand. So the Associated Newspaper lawyer, Mr. White, was asking Harry about his relationship with the male journalist Katie Nichols. He was trying to get Harry to admit that she met his friends and went to the same nightclubs and parties that Harry and his friends went to. Mr. White alleged she would go to the same or similar nightclubs as Harry, and Harry snapped, well, good for her. Everybody knew who she was, so nobody would be loose-lipped around her. If the sources were so good and she was hanging out with my friends, why was she using private investigators? Well, that's just the point. She didn't need the private investigators because she was hanging out with you and your friends. I'm not sure what happened to that point, but the judge interrupted to tell Harry that his job was not to argue the case or to argue back with the barrister. We'll do that later in the trial. For now, just answer Mr. White's questions, and if you don't know the answer, just say so. So Harry was being asked about his friendship circle, including the late Tara Palmer Tompkinson and the sports presenter Natalie Pinkham, and it's out to him that male journalist Katie Nichols mixed in those social circles. So Prince Harry tells the judge that Natalie Pinkham contacted him just yesterday to say that she was not a source for the stories and was never a source. And Harry tells the judge that Pinkham had her conversation recorded without her knowledge. At the same time, Harry admitted that she got phone calls from Katie Nichols and questions were asked. So Mr. White basically puts it to Harry, you know your social circle was leaky because there was an email with his friend Tom Inskep where they discuss a leak about Harry's plans to travel to Jamaica for Inskep's wedding in 2017. And Harry goes, my social circle was not leaky. I want to make that absolutely clear. So then Mr. White was asking Harry about his relationship with the Daily Mail royal editor. Her name is Rebecca English. Harry said that he had spoken to her on a number of occasions. She was part of the journalists that would accompany the royals on tours. He said, you know, it's a hard thing to be forced to work alongside people despite them sharing articles about his private life. And he said English recalls Prince Harry told her he read everything published about him and he had a notebook where he wrote down who published what. Harry says, I don't recall that at all. So Harry was asked, why didn't you complain to Miss English about the articles being written about you? And Harry goes, well, hindsight's a beautiful thing. They then continued on and said, you know, Harry, you called her twice. Once to check on her well-being and, once to thank her. And Harry goes, well, if that's true, I was probably advised to say thank you to her. And he goes, it was so hard working with her, knowing the kinds of stories she wrote on about me. And they go on to have a very short and sharp exchange. And finally, Mr. White goes, well, I put it to you, you had a good relationship with her. And Harry goes, chuckling, no, I did not have a good relationship with Miss English, quite the opposite. By the way, this is a picture of Harry with Rebecca English. Of course, he claims at this point, when he took this picture, he didn't know who she was or what she did for a living. Mr. White then went on to ask Harry about a conversation he had around a campfire in Botswana about Chelsea Davy. And Harry says he had known these close friends. They were like surrogate parents who he'd known since he was 14, and they would never be a source for a story about him. At the same time, Harry said in his witness statement he would never share information with strangers around a campfire. And then Mr. White talked about the fact that Harry wrote about this in the Spare, showed Harry the excerpt where Prince Harry said he told 3 close friends of his need to see Chelsea. Then they moved forward to another mail story about Cressida Bonus, that she was flying to Necker Island rather than Sandringham. The Sun reported that. And White suggested that the Daily Mail got her info from a palace press secretary, which was part of the regular communication between journalists like English and the palace. Mr. White then showed Harry emails that show regular interaction between journalists and palace officials. And Harry goes, perhaps for things that affect the institution, but not my love life. And from Harry's written witness statement that was released today of the ANL, he said, if the most influential newspaper company can successfully evade justice, then in my opinion, the whole country is doomed. Now, for those who haven't seen Harry's witness statement, here's what he says, quote, following the death of my mother in 1997, when I was 12 years old, and her treatment at the hands of the press, I have always had an uneasy relationship with them. However, as a member of the institution, the policy was to never complain, never explain. There was no alternative. I was conditioned to accept it. For the most part, I accepted the interest in my performing my public functions. However, in late 2016, when my relationship with Meghan, my now wife, became public, I started to become increasingly troubled by the approach of not taking action against the press in the wake of vicious, persistent attacks on, harassment of, and intrusive, sometimes racist articles concerning Meghan. Well, so here's the problem. This entire case is before he met Meghan. There was only one really nasty article, and that journalist was sacked. So it makes you wonder who wrote this. It gives you the whole, when I was 12 years old. Get it? Now, it's being reported that Harry was calm and self-assured not to let a single utterance go unchecked, even after the rebuke from the judge. But when Meghan was mentioned, his voice cracked and he said they've made her life an absolute misery. No, I don't understand why that's being allowed in court, because the articles in question are between 2001 and 2013. So his statements about Meghan should be thrown out because she wasn't even in the picture when this was all going on. Now, it also came out today that Prince Harry has a secret Facebook account with his name as Mr. Mischief. And he used that account to make contact with Charlotte Griffith, a journalist at the Mail, on Sunday. He used it to exchange messages and share his mobile telephone number through the social media site. He says, I never used the name Mr. Mischief, and he expressed uncertainty about whether any Facebook exchanges occurred. It is being reported that Prince Harry's case is literally threadbare and has been brought to late. ANL is not going to roll over and just pay this man, which is what I think he thought was going to happen, or they were going to settle, because journalists working for the publisher provided an account of a pattern of legitimate sourcing of articles, and these witnesses are going to show that throughout the entire trial. Now, another part of Harry's testimony, he said in his written evidence, if someone was dating me, they might assume that there would be a photograph coming out of a restaurant or a concert, but you would never expect to experience full-blown harassment. And whenever I got on a plane or I was in a car, I always expected I was being followed. I was under 24-hour surveillance. And because of my position as a member of the royal family, both my security team and I always had security concerns, even before I arrived at a location, because of how often the press knew about our every movement, sometimes hiding at a location before we even got there. The security risk was particularly great when we were abroad, and we could not always rely on police assistance. Now, remember that Cressida Bonus said that one of the reasons why she stopped dating Harry was because he was paranoid and he would see paparazzi lurking where they weren't there. I told you that the judge has interrupted Harry before. Well, in case you don't know, he was interrupted twice for trying to argue the case himself. And then Harry looks at the judge and says to him, it's really important to put the color and the context back into the stories, which he says A&L has stripped. It's key, he says, when you're under 24-hour surveillance. I'm telling you, this guy is drug-addled paranoid. So when you get down to it, Harry was on the stand. He was being nasty with the attorneys. He was told off by the judge, and he tried to manipulate the court. He really didn't have anything to say that added any value to the case. You guys get what I'm saying? Absolutely nothing. He simply reverted to his usual pattern. It's the family's fault. It's the UK press. Poor Meghan's a victim. His family, the death of his mother when I was 12 years old. The same over and over and over. He has learned nothing. I wonder if in court they're going to bring up Brian E. Gordon. This is a UK journalist who has a private and very personal relationship with Harry and Meghan. They went on her podcast. They have a texting relationship to the point where Harry invited this woman to Montecito. That was the picture we got where we were able to see that Harry and Meghan have the royal monogram on their doormat. And if you guys are wondering why this journalist is getting the special treatment, all you have to do is look at her articles. Every single article that she's written has been a pro-Meghan, pro-Harry piece. I assure you, if she ever wrote an article talking about their behavior or Meghan's lies or anything, she'd be cut off in 2 seconds. She's even gone on talk shows defending Harry and Meghan and saying she just doesn't understand the amount of hate she gets. She's just a mom from California making jam. Why can't people leave her alone? And she completely ignores the lies and everything else. Now, in the meantime, people are really talking about how Harry looked in court. They're saying that most Britons who move to California, they go there to make their friends jealous because they look younger when they come back. But Harry achieved the opposite. The article says, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to wrinkles. Just ask Yoda. They're saying that Harry bristled and prickled and blinked and nodded and rocked from side to side in his seat. And he seemed every inch the man who prowls the bars at 10:30 on a Friday night in desperation for someone to spill his drink on. The article confirms that Harry never gave a straight answer to any question. In other words, he preferred to question credibility to the point where, as I told you before, Judge Nicklin had to intervene saying, you're doing exactly what a lot of litigants do, which is to argue back with the barrister about the evidence that's being put to you when your role is simply to answer the questions. Harry sulked and from that point on tried a new tactic, which was to continue to seek to land his punches, then turn sideways towards the judge for approval every time he did so. I mean, they're going on about his body language. They said it was not a good strategy. I mean, they said he was staring, and the more he stared, the more unsettling it became. For more than an hour, his eyes got more and more narrower to the point where it felt like not only the eyeballs, but the sockets have shifted closer together. And they did right that cameras, while not allowed in the courtroom, should have been, because his eyes alone would have done huge numbers on Instagram as an optical illusion meme. I mean, essentially, guys, the article called him old, wrinkled, and not good looking anymore. He is going to be so angry because he can't control that narrative. So here's the problem with Harry's case, and Queen Esther on Twitter said it best. Harry is in the court system complaining that his life has been commercialized by the media and it made Meghan's life a misery, but no one on earth has monetized his life more aggressively than himself. This case is meant to be about press intrusion and wrongdoing from years ago, way before Meghan, before the Netflix deal and the podcast and the memoir and the PR campaigns. But he still twisted it into a Meghan-centered sob story because he's learned how to weaponize feelings to replace the facts. And quite frankly, it's just exhausting. If Harry really believed profiting off somebody's private life was disgusting, he wouldn't do it to himself. He would not have sold the most intimate parts of his life to the highest bidder. He would not have packaged family conflicts into content. He would not have dragged his father, brother, and their wives through global humiliation while pretending he's some innocent victim of the tabloids. Harry's outrage is selective. So when newspapers profit, it's evil. When he profits, he calls it healing, truth, and bravery. And he's not just complaining about his life being commercialized. He's built an entirely new life off of commercializing his life. He did not escape the machine, people. He became part of the machine. He didn't reject the spotlight. He simply negotiated the price. And the irony is so insulting. He wants the public to believe he's outraged by intrusions while he hands over private details on command when it's profitable and when it hurts the very people that he's angry at and is demanding a reconciliation with. He wants sympathy while continuing to monetize grievances like it's a business model. People are just sick of Harry because he claims he wants privacy while staging publicity. He wants justice while performing for attention. The truth is he's not fighting for dignity. He's fighting for control, to control the narrative, control the headlines, control who gets paid, control who gets blamed. So Harry can sit on that stand and talk about being commercialized, but he knows the world isn't as gullible as it used to be. People can totally see the difference between being exploited and being a willing participant. So Harry isn't traumatized by commercialization. He's traumatized that he can't monopolize it. Oh my God. I so want your comments. Put them down. Make them good. You know I'm reading them. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. Then go down into the description box where you'll find the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, a link to my second channel, a link to my father's book, which is still up for sale on Amazon, and a link to my Amazon wish list, as well as a physical address. For those of you who have donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.